Good morning in beautiful Maastricht for all of you. My name is Tom van Veen. I'm acting pro-rector and I chair this session. And hereby I open this academic ceremony in which Marc Becker will defend the academic thesis, Social AI Agents in Service, the New Frontier. May I invite you, Marc, to present a summary of your study and the conclusions of your thesis in 15 minutes.
Thank you. Dear Pro-Rector, dear members of the Corona, dear colleagues, family, and guests. In the next 15 minutes, I will summarize the findings of my dissertation entitled Social AI Agents in Service, the New Frontier. When thinking about AI, it has made big steps in the last couple of years, from merely giving us recommendations on shopping websites or video platforms to enabling intelligent, human-like conversation. Not only in the virtual world, for example, with ChatGPT or Claude, but also in the physical world with embodied service robots. AI agents nowadays can write essays and code, they can solve complex problems, and they can even generate creative output such as art. Thanks to those new capabilities, AI agents answer the phone when we call for customer support, they advise us on which products to buy on websites, they serve us in physically embodied service robot shapes in restaurants to serve us food and drinks. They greet us in hotels, take care of us when we are sick or old, and they educate us, for example, here at Maastricht University. Not only the tasks of AI are changing, but also the roles. AI is moving from a technology that has been subordinate to the humans and doing what the humans want of it, to becoming co-workers, where the humans work with them side by side, and even becoming the leaders and managers of humans. The key argument that I make in my dissertation is that as AI agents move from subordinates to co-workers to leaders, also the demanded socialness increases. So for example, if we look at an AI subordinate must merely fulfill basic social requirements to, for example, show a warm welcome or to apologize for a mistake. Once the AI moves on to become a co-worker, collaboration becomes important, and the AI must enact the social norms that come with this collaboration. Once AI becomes a leader, it has to do more than just distribute tasks and manage employees, and it has to create a safe social climate for the employees to work in. Across the chapters of my dissertation, I track this progression and seek to answer the question, how does the progression of AI agents from subordinates to co-workers to leaders shape the social behavioral demands placed on them? In chapter 2, I focus on AI agents in subordinate roles. In these roles, AI agents have to give, for example, a warm welcome. They have to recognize when a customer is dissatisfied. They have to apologize for it and potentially even calm down a customer. In order to do these different tasks, AI agents must be able to engage in 4 different emotional communication strategies. These strategies can either be reactive, so to for example, mimic a customer's smile or to alleviate negative customer emotions, or they can be proactive, by infusing positive emotions, for example, by smiling at a customer who's coming in, or by preventing negative emotions by anticipating that a customer might be dissatisfied about a certain message. For AI agents to be able to engage in these strategies, they must be able to read not only the emotions of the person they're interacting with, but also the situation more broadly. Based on this, they must be able to decide on an emotional response and express this emotional response, for example, through visual displays on a screen or through cues in their voice. Importantly, though, at this moment, we know very little about those 4 strategies and the different emotional communication steps and how they are being perceived by users and customers and how AI can best execute them. This is why Chapter 2 contributes a comprehensive research agenda with concrete questions that can be tackled and also priorities. In Chapter 3, I begin with the empirical investigation of my dissertation, again focusing on AI and subordinate roles. The starting point of this chapter is the observation that if we look at embodied AI agents, so for example service robots that operate in restaurants, they widely differ in terms of their appearance. Some look very machine-like, while others look human-like. often with that human likeness having the intention of making the AI agent appear more social. The question I'm asking in chapter 3 is whether this appearance does indeed make the AI appear more social and whether the socialness is perceived more positively by customers. To study this, I asked participants to imagine that they are dining at a restaurant and that they're either being served by a machine-like robot or by a human-like robot, and then asked them to reflect on their experience. What the findings show is that the human-like design of the robots make it easier for people to build rapport with them, which makes them feel more comfortable during the service interaction and ultimately leads to higher customer satisfaction, word of mouth, engagement, and willingness to pay. While this indicates that human likeness is positive and that socialness is positive, importantly, what I also find is that these positive effects break down when the robot makes a mistake, which can often happen in the unstructured environments that they operate in. Therefore, what I conclude with chapter 3 is that visual design cues in terms of human likeness can already get a bit of social response, but they are not enough. Therefore, AI agents must demonstrate the socialness through enacted social behavior. And this is precisely what I'm doing in chapter 4. In chapter 4, I move from subordinate roles to co-working roles, so where people work side by side with the AI agent. If we think about human co-workers and they, for example, drop the plate in front of us, we would be very likely, hopefully, to go and help them in the situation, because we would expect that they would be doing the same for us, but also because we would fear that they would retaliate and be angry with us if we did not help. The question I'm asking in this chapter is whether people would be doing the same for an AI agent. To investigate this, I conducted 4 studies with more than 1,800 participants where they imagined working together with Nora. And Nora was struggling to find the correct table. Nora was either a human waitress or a service robot. And I then asked the people whether they would be willing to help Nora. The shocking finding that we have in this paper is that people are much less willing to help a robotic coworker than a human one. And even more shockingly, they would be more willing to harm their robotic coworkers as well, by, for example, withholding important information from them or by forming coalitions against the robot. The reason for this is that people do not expect the robot to reciprocate. They do not expect the robot to help back if they help it, and they do not expect it to harm them back when they harmed it. Therefore, what I did in the final study of this chapter is to give the robot the capability to remember who helped it and then to also help back in the future. And what we see is that this does not only increase helping, but it also decreases harming towards the robot. Therefore, what this chapter shows is that as AI agents move from subordinates to co-workers, socialness becomes indispensable in order to collaborate with the humans. In chapter 5, I begin focusing on AI agents in leader roles, and specifically as a leader in the classroom. If we think about teachers, it is more than just knowing the content of the class, but it's also about creating a safe social climate in which the students feel that they can speak up, that they can ask questions, and importantly also make mistakes. The question I'm asking in this chapter is whether AI agents can create such a safe social climate in which students feel they can speak up by not sharing the conversations that it has with the students with a human teacher. Therefore, in this way, being confidential. I ran 6 field and lab studies, mostly here with students, 2,000 students from Maastricht University, where the students use the AI agents in their own classes on assignments. And the students either interacted with a confidential AI teacher, so one that kept the conversations private, or with a non-confidential AI teacher, so where the human teacher could see the conversations. I was then interested in seeing which one students used more. And what we find is that if the AI teacher was confidential, students made much more use of it. This was because they feared less judgment from the AI teacher, and they had, in that sense, also lower interaction anxiety. This was especially relevant for students with a high prevention focus as their psychological trait, and it was attenuated when the teacher was perceived as benevolent, therefore as having the student's best interest at mind. Therefore, what this chapter shows is that AI teachers must do more than just teach content, but they must actively create a safe social climate for the students to learn in. Also, Chapter 6 focuses on AI agents in leadership roles, and this time as a manager. While this might sound futuristic at first, AI agents already nowadays distribute tasks to employees. They provide feedback, they create schedules, they track performance, and in a lot of companies, they actually also make hiring decisions. The question I'm asking in this chapter is whether such AI leaders can increase the performance of their subordinates by employing charismatic leadership styles. So, for example, by painting a clear vision and using motivational language when they communicate. In order to test this, I asked participants to create a social media post, and they were either supervised by a charismatic AI leader or by a non-charismatic AI leader. And afterwards, we evaluated the performance of those, and the quality of those social media posts. And what we find is that the charismatic leader does not only increase the motivation of the followers, but also led to higher output quality, so better social media posts. Therefore, what this chapter shows is that AI leaders must go beyond merely allocating and managing tasks, but they have to use their social skills to lead and motivate the employees. Another contribution of Chapter 6 is the introduction of Research.AI, which is a tool that researchers can use to deploy their own AI agents in their studies. And the important part is that they don't need any coding expertise for this and can set them up within a couple of minutes. The platform has thus far been used by more than 100 researchers worldwide, and more than 9,500 participants in studies have sent more than 75,000 messages to AI agents. Therefore, to conclude the summary of my dissertation, I want to highlight a couple of important shifts that we must make. We have to move away from just seeing socialness as caused by human-like design attributes in AI agents to looking at and studying enacted social behavior by the agents. We have to move away from just either seeing AI as fully social or non-social entities to understanding that they're partially social, where people attribute some socialness to them but withhold others, more complex types. And we must move away from seeing socialness in AI agents as either being purely positive or negative to understanding that the value is contingent, where people sometimes want the AI to be social and other times the absence of socialness is precisely what they seek in the AI. And this is, of course, also important for service providers and AI designers, because they have to design the socialness of the AI from the start, and they have to calibrate it to the situation. So like I said, for example, sometimes they might make the AI on purpose very social, and other times on purpose they withhold the socialness of it. And it's, of course, also important for service providers to hire employees that can work together with AI agents that are social, and also train them in doing so. Thank you very much for your attention, and I give back the word to the prorector.
Thank you for your presentation. The opposition will be opened by Professor Lemming, Professor of Marketing and Service Innovation at Maastricht University, and Professor Lemming was chair of the assessment committee of this thesis.
Dear candidate, I very much liked reading your dissertation, clearly written and also with sort of a collection of studies that cover a lot of interesting research questions, and also the development of theory is really commendable. I would like to start off with one general question for the discussion. And this is about maybe you explained it by partially socialness, partly, but one of your conclusions in your impact paragraph is to be effective, accepted, and legitimate, these agents must display socialness by behaving in ways that match the human norms tied to their role. So, in other words, the point of departure is the human roles and the human norms. So, I wonder if these norms are not up to change. Because if you have more experience with AI service, then probably also what you expect will change, and this can be very dramatically, that you're not even interested in social responses anymore, but that you would like to have very practical advice or very practical recommendations. And this is really strengthened also by the fact that more and more humans are also using AI to represent them. Mm-hmm. So in other words, where does it leave the human aspect, the human norms?
Yeah, the highly esteemed opponent, thank you very much for this question. And I think there is two ways of looking at it. And the first one is, I think, often also when you say, are the norms going to change? People maybe just want to have a straight answer. They don't want to have all this fluffiness around it. And I think this could be a positive thing sometimes, but also sometimes a negative thing. So, for example, in chapter 4, when it's about harming of coworkers and talking badly about them behind their back, not reciprocating, I specifically warn against it, actually, that the human norms erode. So by not treating your robot anymore like with social decency in that sense, you might have negative spillovers, that you also stop treating other humans as such. So that's one angle that I take on it. And the other part, of course, is, do we really want socialness in the AI agents? And I think that's also like a bit the departure of the entire dissertation. People often subconsciously attribute at least basic forms of socialness. So once they see, like, we have like a lot of robots at the lab, when they see the robot driving around, they immediately think it's a social being. Like also people, when they talk to it, they talk about he or she. They think it has intentions, it has agency. So just like by basic cues, people see that it's social, and I think in that sense they also want certain, or like they want those social expectations that they just formed themselves by merely seeing the robot for the first time to be fulfilled. And this is a bit the departure. And I think you have people that do not care about this at all. They are 100%, let's say, they're not very emotional about it, you know. They're just like very sober, and they just want the AI to do the task. And there's other people for whom the socialness becomes more important. And for those people, you would then also have to deliver the socialness.
Thank you.
The opposition will be continued by Dr. Kaminski, member of the Department of Organization, Strategy and Entrepreneurship at Maastricht University.
Thank you. I also read your thesis with great interest. I think it's very compelling, like a broad set of experiments and mechanisms that you explore, which would also lead me to my first question. If socialness can be considered as an umbrella term, and if, let's say, authority can be considered a continuum, then why do we need so many different mechanisms and different levels at which we test them?
Dear highly esteemed opponent, thank you very much for this question. And socialness indeed is a very broad concept, and this is why there is all those different streams and theories coming together. The reason why I purposefully looked at all those different angles was because I was interested in the interaction that people have with AI agents, and how not only they behave when the AI interacts with them, but also how the AI should be behaving. And therefore, the socialness lens was very specifically chosen because it gives you this interaction perspective.
Okay, so but do you see like there is an attempt at making it a more coherent construct? Because like I'm wondering like whether to some extent to explain mechanisms you need the nonlinearities. I want to give you one example, because the example with the Nora robot, human versus machine, doesn't, for instance, something like awareness and intention play an extreme role that is yet unexplored? Awareness about being in the treatment group, essentially, which becomes more and more relevant. We all feel more and more part of treatment group with AI because we are aware. And the second point would be, what's the role of intention? Because do computers, or can they have intention versus humans? So if Nora makes a mistake, we value her for the potentially bad intention, whereas with computers, that's the big question. If you make them more social, intention might fire back.
Yeah. So if we look at like first of all the agency, I think that's like one of the important parts that AI is different from from other technologies. And I'm sometimes completely surprised myself. So when we, for example, had our Temi robot here at Open Days, we had people come by and that suddenly saw the robot as attacking them. It was just driving towards them. There's no agency whatsoever involved in terms of the robot having any mind and wanting to attack them. But then they even linked it to things that the Temi robot said later on. So they constructed this reality around it where the robot did have agency. And so although AI agents are not at this point, luckily, really possessing agency in people's minds, they do get that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Good.
Thank you. Dr. Kaminski was member of the assessment committee of the thesis, and we continue with another member of the assessment committee of the thesis, and that's Professor Lievens, Professor of Marketing at the University of Antwerp.
Thank you. Dear candidate, dear Marc, let me first congratulate you. I have to say I was really impressed. I've been member of so many coronas and juries, and I have to say this was... I was a bit blown away, so you did a really terrific job. A bit on the contrary with my colleague, I was actually rather charmed by the fact that you were able to integrate so many different theories and actually extended them in this AI context. So that was extremely impressive also from a methodological perspective, how you replicated, did several studies to strengthen internal, external validity. And of course, this research at AI, I hope you allow me, I will share it in my faculty because
Please, thank you.
It's very enthusiastic. There are a lot of nice stuff I can ask on all the chapters, but also in view of time restrictions, I just want to confront you with an interesting event that was in a lot of newspapers. And don't worry if you missed it, it's okay. It's Moldbook.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Moldbook, it's this social media network that was specifically launched the end of January. And where there are only actually agents, AI agents, communicating with one another. Humans are not allowed. They're just allowed to observe. So I want to give you a couple of challenges here. The interesting thing is because the perspective of your PhD is mostly ending, and it's fine, into implications as to how can we steer, design, improve the design of the new AI robots. But here in this sense, there's this concept that is quite interesting, and it's about the compositional complexity. And compositional complexity relates to the fact that actually what happens in this social media platform is completely unprogrammed. So the AI agents are not programmed. It's the result of the interactions of thousands of AI agents. So quite challenging. But it was very nice to read the articles. A nice thing, of course, is that you can look at it as a hive mind where knowledge is being shared and created in an unprecedented pace, uncomparable to humans. And also there are no egos involved. So they do not engage in rages and insulting one another. No, they go for an optimal solution. So my question is, considering this new evolution and looking at the research that you did, how could this have an impact? How could this change some of the research ideas that you developed over time and that you reflect on? Yeah.
Dear highly esteemed opponent, thank you very much, by the way, to give me the chance to talk about two research projects that are not necessarily part of my PhD, but I'm working on right now because they exactly do what you just mentioned.
Okay.
And that is, I will just focus on one for now, and that is where we are going beyond research at AI, which focuses on dyadic conversations, where so one human, one AI agent, to use AI to study team contexts. So if we have team research, it's very complex because you always need like 3-4 people coming together at the same time, working together. If one person drops out, you already have like logistical issues. And that even becomes more difficult when you have, for example, multi-team membership leadership, so where you want to have people being in multiple teams. So what we're doing there right now, and also taking an organizational perspective for this one, is to have people in teams of 3 or 4 AI agents. And we already built this tool, so we already collected data from more than 2,000 participants. And the challenge here is because AI agents, if you just have them unbound without like any further instructions, they respond at superhuman speeds. So like the first version that we had is like agent A says something, immediately agent B says something, agent C, the human never had any chance of even catching up or participating in the discussion. And so what we did in this project is we have an like a overarching AI, which we call the director. And this director is giving cues to different AIs. And it says, okay, so like normally, and so we gave all those timing rules, normally a person would now suggest a new idea here. Or like a person would now throw in a question. And then we said, okay, how long would a human take to write this message? So this is something that we work on right now. And we collected all the data. And we were surprised that the detection rate of AIs, so we on purpose we asked participants afterwards which team members were AI agents, was not as high as we would have expected. So we were like around 40-45%, I think, detection rate, which sounds at first high. But then if we did the same experiments with human samples, they were not much lower. So like against the human benchmark, they were quite similar. So thank you very much for giving me the chance to talk about this.
Okay, very interesting. To be continued.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
The opposition will be continued by Professor Pauwloeg, Professor for Service and Technology Marketing at RWTH Aachen University, and Professor Pauwloeg was also a member of the assessment committee of the thesis.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marc. That was an awesome presentation and a very interesting topic, of course. And as you know, I'm coming from a university where there must be a theoretical relevance for the project, but the most important point is always for the managers. So what can companies learn, what can organizations learn, and the industry. So when reading through your dissertation and also listening to your presentation, I was wondering, you said a few things at the end, so scale, sociability, and all these things. But now imagine you are a consultant and you have to earn the money from a consultancy perspective. So what would you recommend managers to do in the short term, long term, and maybe also in the middle term based on the results of your dissertation? So you said at the end of the presentation, be more sociable or scale sociability. My question is how? I mean, you can tell the managers what to do, but what exactly should they do? Maybe you can give us some insights from this consultant perspective.
Yeah, the esteemed opponent, thank you very much for this question. And I think like probably the clearest recommendation that I would give a company is this contingent value of socialness. So to not necessarily now, although it's the title of my dissertation, to push that they have to make their AI agents social, but to really look at the context. So if we, for example, have a situation, and I think that you have also your own paper on embarrassing service encounters. Jenny van Doorn also has a paper on that. Like when it's a situation in which you want people to speak very freely, also like in my dissertation, the teaching, then I would advise on purpose make the AI less social. So try to avoid any social cues, try to speak in a very mechanical way, try to frame it through labels in there, so that people are really aware that they are with a AI that is in theory or in practice non-judgmental. If you then, of course, have another service situation, let's say it's about a restaurant, then I would advise to lean more into that socialness, to also have clearly scripts, like to not just go ahead and say, okay, we're not going to put the robot here, but to really interview maybe your best employees and say, okay, what are you saying when like a customer comes inside? What are you saying when you go to the table? And sort of like have a best practice collection. And then how those large language models also work is you can just give that to the AI. And the AI is going to be having all the best tricks from all your different employees.
Okay, thank you.
The opposition will be continued by Professor Bozard, Professor of Educational Research and Development at Maastricht University.
Thank you, Prorector. Dear candidate, dear Marc, first of all, let me also congratulate you on this impressive piece of work. I very much agree with the feedback already given by my colleagues. Well, let me maybe add that I was especially impressed by the fact that you were able to get 5 high-quality studies into one chapter. I never saw that before. That was impressive work. Now, given my background in education, and given that I have been spending many hours with teachers, supporting them in how to organize their classrooms, I would like to use my time in the opposition to reflect with you on the findings that you have related to that. How should we use AI in higher education classrooms? A few weeks ago, I attended the BET conference. Maybe you know the conference. It's a conference in London that offers a broad overview of the current state of educational technology. And unsurprisingly, AI and educational robots were everywhere. At the same time, there was also a sense of AI for AI's sake, impressive technologies, but not always convincingly aligned with educational theory and didactical principles. Interestingly, also in London, in the bus ride to BET, I saw advertisement for human-centered private tutoring, and that was advertised almost positioning human robots as a corrective or antidote to AI, as if AI was something to be avoided. Against this background, your dissertation raises what I see as a productive tension. On the one hand, you suggest that teachers-in-the-loop approaches, where AI systems are closely combined with teacher guidance, may prevent students from taking full advantage of teacher robots. On the other hand, you also point in the direction of AI systems, including quality issues, biases. And that would be then an argument precisely for human-in-the-loop approaches. Bringing me to my very practical question. Based on these findings, help me out here. How should I be organizing my classroom tomorrow? Should, more concretely, I step back as a teacher and allow students to interact more autonomously with AI systems? Or should I be a more actively involved teacher? And maybe an additional question, should I keep in mind the teacher I am, or when I'm supporting colleague teachers, should I keep in mind the experience they have, for example, or should I be keeping in mind what kind of knowledge they are actually trying to bring across?
Just to clarify that last point, so when you advise another colleague and like the experience that they have and like what you should advise there on, or like?
Yeah, so my second question is, should I be keeping in mind the profile of the teacher there, experience level, but also what he is teaching?
Okay. Dear highly esteemed opponent, thank you very much for this question. And it also lets me reflect on my own work, which is here part of the Spark pilot that we are running, where we also implement AI in the classrooms. And there we precisely had the same tension at the beginning when we implemented those AI agents and the platform that you are mentioning. Should we have take a step back based on the findings in my own paper and let the conversations be confidential? Or should we get access to the interaction logs in order to improve the quality of the platform? So what we did is, against the better of my dissertation in that sense, we did decide to have access to the interactions. The reason for that was that right now we still have to figure out how to best design the AI agents. We do not know 100% how we have to best instruct them, how the students are going to interact with them, where they might go off topic or off track. So this is why we said, okay, now for at least the pilot, while we are still experimenting, we need this access. We did know, and I think I know for a fact that students use the platform because of that less. But we did make this trade-off there so that we could learn and improve. So what that means for the future is I would advise anybody, for example, like you, to have such an access at the beginning, and then to scale back, and then to make the conversations private. So once you know that the agent is working the way it should be, so for example, right now we implement them in a course that has 4 different debates on globalization. So for example, after the first session where the AI bot was used for a debate, and you see that the chat goes in the right direction, the AI is doing what it's supposed to be doing, then for example, sessions 2, 3, 4 could be switched to a confidential setup. Similar also like for online platforms, you could, for example, always when you have a new agent, you put a label on the new, and then there's maybe like an asterisk or something that mentions, please be aware that because this is a new agent for privacy or for like quality assurance purposes, your interactions are shared. So from a practical perspective, this is what I would advise there. About the expertise of the teacher. So when we built the agents for the Spark pilot, we always try to have the agent resemble the teaching method of the teacher themselves. So what for example meets against this debate case, there's 2 agents. One agent is doing the debate, and then afterwards students can upload upload their transcript from the debate to a second bot that is giving feedback. And so here we ask the course coordinator specifically to tell us not only what is the research rubrics, but what is feedback that he often gives to students. What are like the important things to him? And in that way, we can then not have just a generic AI that just gives generic feedback on form, but we have a proxy in that sense that speaks in the name of the course coordinator.
Thank you very much. And then if we focus on what, if we focus on what we are teaching, should we make a distinction there? Think of a very complex problem, a lot of application, or just transferring knowledge? How do you see a difference there?
I think it's a good question, and of course, like to give like a very general answer is a bit tricky in the sense that there might always be situations in which it's not ideal. So when we have workshops with the course coordinators, we always try to make it clear that it should not be, like you said, implemented for the sake of AI, but only if it's really adding value. So this is always like what we say very clearly at the beginning. If there's a situation in which the AI can, for example, be used to walk students through a mathematical problem, so like to really explain them where the different components of the formula come from, this is like a perfect use case. Or like another one, when it's about experience something, like a debate, a negotiation, about talking to somebody from a developing country that you would otherwise never get the perspective of, those are value-adding tasks, and then you can do it very well. A lot of other things, you would just not overburn the AI, but you would just not take a lot of value out of the AI. And in those cases, I would simply not use it then.
Thank you. I will remember. I'll reflect on the link with the learning objective.
Thank you.
The opposition will be continued by Dr. Datta, Associate Professor of Marketing at Tilburg University.
Dear candidates, dear Marc, to start, also congratulations on this exceptional piece of work. It's been a real pleasure to read your dissertation because it provided a lot of breadth, but also depth where it matters most. It may not surprise you that I'm also asking a question about Chapter 5, the application of an AI chatbot in an educational setting. So I'm curious to learn more about your interpretation of the effect sizes in your studies, across many studies. The difference in messages exchanged is about 1.17 messages in one of your studies, in another 0.2, in another 0.4. So my worry is that the manipulation, although significant, didn't meaningfully shift variation in a direction that it substantively matters, right? Half a message, what is it adding actually? And you support this view also through your exploratory analyses, in which you say, well, interaction output quality is about the same, and so is student performance. So to make it concrete, how do you think about your effect sizes in these absolute messages exchanged? Do you believe that the manipulation does really not affect such measures? Or do you rather believe that your manipulation or the tasks in which you set this thing up weren't just not strong enough to make real differences? And maybe also building on my colleagues' comments earlier, you can think about tasks where you think actually usage will be shifting meaningfully. So I'm curious to hear your perspective on these sub-questions.
Yeah, esteemed opponent, thank you very much for this question. And of course, the effect sizes sometimes might seem quite small. I think it's also, like you correctly said, due to the fact that the number of messages overall were not that many in some of the situations, which was due because students often only interacted or like had a time for the assignment for 10, 12 minutes. So that was often because we wanted to collect field data. So that was our goal, to have students really experience the AI in the classroom. That was sometimes logistical reasons. So we could just not take out too much of a chunk of the course that we're in. So that's certainly, I think, the reason why the overall number of messages are relatively small. If we then think about effect sizes, I think, yeah, they might seem quite small, but we do replicate the findings over and over again. So we had 6 studies in which we always saw the same pattern reoccurring. So if we already see it in, if you see this constant pattern, I think it's hinting more at the underlying problem that there is. And we also had our qualitative study in there where we got like the students' opinions about what happened to them. And they always very clearly said, yeah, I'm not going to be using it if I know that the teacher is reading it and judging it. And this is also something that we now again experienced with a Spark pilot as well, where if we have all the access to the messages, of course what we almost preclude from it is that that students move away from a normal ChatGPT that they are using in a daily way to migrating entirely to our platform. So where they really talk with the AI about any question that they might be having. And so in that sense, by having access to the conversations and by making students feel observed and judged, we take out a lot of opportunity for students to engage with the platform. And of course, like the tasks that we chose, they were always focused on the exercise that the students were doing in that moment. If I was now, like a couple of years later, perhaps doing it again, maybe there might be like something that's more I don't want to say debate, because I would still want to be like a teacher, but something that really like triggers the students to have to push very, very far in terms of detail and everything. So to make it much more needing for the students to interact with them. Something that we did, for example, do in Chapter 6. So in Chapter 6, we also have a study with also Research Chat AI demonstrating it. And what we did there is we prohibited students from using Google or any other course materials to really push them towards that. We didn't do that in this paper because we wanted to keep the ecological validity more of the setting. But those are, for example, triggers where you can then have higher means and potentially higher effect sizes.
Thank you. I think the time dimension is really what convinces me here to write if it's just a 15-minute interaction. What do you think is the future of inferring emotions in an educational setting against the backdrop of the EU AI Act that specifically prohibits inferring emotions in workplaces? I think about your robot, serving me a food, and that may clash, but also in an educational setting. Do we need to bake it in that it will never do this, or are there workarounds in which this is not really emotions but still adds value in such a conversation?
I think it's there's of course different ways of emotion, I think, and what the way that I could imagine like in a classroom setting where you would use emotions from a teacher perspective. It could of course be to flag certain issues that a student might be having, so that you really see a student intensely struggling and maybe expressing to the AI that they can no longer do it or whatever. So really like show their struggles and everything. And of course, there I think we have like a clear ethical tension, because we cannot just simply ignore it if we are able to pick up on those markers. I mean, for example, here at Maastricht University, if you go like to bathrooms, there's like a QR code that you can scan. Need somebody to talk, like scan me. And so like I think like if we have the technology already ready and we can help students in that way, I think we have to solve those ethical challenges to make it work.
Thank you.
The opposition will be continued by Professor van Doorn, Professor of Service Marketing at the University of Groningen, and Professor van Doorn is with us online.
Thank you, Mr. Rector. Dear candidates, I want to congratulate you on an ambitious thesis on a timely and relevant topic that clearly makes a novel contribution to marketing literature. What I really like about your thesis is that it contains many field studies, because I myself are a big lover of field studies for ecological validity. However, chapter 4 for the moment, at least the version that I had, only contains scenario-based studies. So obvious question from my side, can you come up with an idea for a field study to show these effects in the reality of a messy real service interaction?
Dear Heidi, student opponent, thank you very much for this question. And as you do, I also value field data, because it really shows that our findings are relevant in the real world. In chapter 4, we had issues in terms of social desirability. So if we were observing people interacting with AI and they know that we are there, of course, they would be more likely to help, less willing to harm. So that has been constraining us thus far. One way to address that in a way was to have the interviews with managers from the restaurants and who sell robots. So if we now think about what a potential setup for it could be, is if we were to have access to a service provider that is deploying robots in many different locations. So let's say we were having 50 different locations or something. And the robots, for managers, we heard they make like 4 to 5 issues a day. So where they are getting stuck or something and having these kind of issues. If we were able to recognize in the system that the robot was having an issue, and then being able to identify how quickly the robot was being helped and being set on track, that would have already give us the first part, I think, about collecting a meaningful DV. Then, of course, what we would also have to do is we would have to somehow implement the manipulation. We would have to see maybe just framing would be enough to say at certain locations you now have the upgraded version of this robot, and this robot is able to recognize who's helping it. Potentially, we could even then link it to video data of the robot, if that's available, to really figure out afterwards, okay, the recording segment of when it has the issue, to get a video recording of it, and then really reward the employee in some way. So having sort of a Wizard of Oz kind of setup. So I think those would be a way that we could potentially test this.
Well, I wonder, you said in the beginning that you are a bit concerned if people are observed. But do you think that this is not something that wears off in practice? So, I mean, some people are already working with the Bella bot for years, right? So do you still think that feeling observed may be an issue there?
To me, it was more about sitting in the restaurant and, for example, in a restaurant, and then taking notes while the employees work. So like having an observational study in that way. So there was two things. We would of course have to tell the students that they are the participants that are there that they are being observed, and then also the incident rate was quite low. So 4 to 5 incidents. If we want to get anywhere to a feasible sample size where we can use for regressions, we would have to be there for 30, 40 days or something. So this is what held us back thus far.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, well, we have ample time, enough time for a second round, and we start again with the first opponent, Professor Levik.
Thank you, Prorector. I have a very concrete question about the tool that you developed in chapter 6, and I'm very interested in that tool, and it also gained momentum as we saw, and you just presented. there's also the vignette method, yeah, vignette method, and I was a big fan of the vignette method and the conjoint measurement, and also offer the different factors of important variables to customers, and then customers judge, and you conclude the importance of the different aspects of the offering. Do you see a future of this vignette method in combination with your tool? Because I can imagine that it can make this type of methods obsolete.
Dear listening opponent, thank you very much for this question. And we try to stress that vignettes still do have a future because they have incredibly high internal validity, like you pointed out. And they are still, although Research.ai is intended to be easy to create studies with, it takes like a couple of minutes to just get it started. Vignettes are still sometimes easier until you have like perfectly the AI behavior calibrated, so that's exactly what you want. It's sometimes still easier to just have a screenshot with a conversation, and you have A and B, and then have a vignette study in that way, a sense. So often what I also still do for my own studies is, although I use Research.ai later on in the process to have people really interact with the AI and to really have behavioral measurements there, I start by looking at a more traditional vignette because it's easier to set up. So I think definitely vignettes, they're not going to go away. I think they're still an important part of the research process. And given also that that Research.ai, it has, I think, in comparison to other methods, still quite high internal validity, but of course not on the level of a vignette. So I think like study packages, study 1A, study 1B, one vignette, one real behavior, I think that could be like a future that I would see where you take advantage of both.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. We follow with Dr. Kaminski.
Dear Voorzitter, danke. Marc, I would have a question that touches upon the previous question by Professor Paloch, which would relate to industry and its impact. How do you reconcile some of the design changes in industry over the past probably century? We started sometime like back in the 90s with Cynthia Brazil's research on Furby and emotional interaction. Then we came to Clippy interacting with us in Word. Then we had Amazon Alexa, but Amazon Alexa had a voice but not a face. And then we also, if we consider especially the case of self-driving cars, we had first like a prototype of a Google car that looked very much like a human, which now then, as Waymo is operating, is more a plain vanilla Ford car, which is with a self-turning wheel and no sign of humans. We can expect that a company like Google is running a lot of A/B tests because they can also afford it. So is it just that Google found out that having social interaction in a driver is more of a bug than a feature?
Dear esteemed opponent, thank you for this question. I think it's like the elements that you refer to were like embodiment kind of things, like Clippy or the car. And I think that goes into more of the direction what I concluded after chapter 3, that pure visual appearance is not enough. So I think they just noticed that people, just because the Google Waymo car looked friendly and like a social entity, people at some point kind of like they got used to it, and it was just like any other car. So I could imagine that sometimes for products, like at the beginning, you need this appearance to get people using it. So for example, also I read the Steve Jobs biography, and they also like the products that they always built, like the first computer, like the first like Apple II, I think it was. Like they really try to have it look like a face, just to get people like away this fear of the technology. Nowadays, nobody cares about what the robot, what a computer looks like anymore. So I think it just tapers off at some point.
Thank you.
We continue with Professor Lievens.
Thank you, Prorector. Yes, Marc, I was a bit puzzled in chapter 3. You analyze an inhibitor and also an enabler of customer comfort. You have the rapport and you have social presence, and of course the start is the human likeness of the robot. And okay, in terms of rapport, everything is fine, but then there is this missing link between human likeness and social presence. I was a bit puzzled there from the start, because I was also wondering then in chapter 4, and it's quite clearly explained, you say, well, the higher human likeness of the robot, the more that customers see it as social actors. But the latter does not really imply that they explicitly expect reciprocity. So I was just wondering, and you give a couple of explanations in chapter 3, and they are quite valid, but is there another way to go about, another way in terms of research approach that would give you a little bit more clarity on this controversial link?
Yeah, distinguished opponent, thank you very much for this question. To just reflect on the missing link, I was as surprised as you were when I first saw it in the data, because I also expected that people would perceive it as more socially present when it was human-like. I think the interesting part is there, though, that we still have a marginally significant link from social presence to customer comfort, which I think helps shed a bit of light on it, though, because that kind of indicates that we still have variation in social presence perceptions. And because they were not tied to our manipulation, the most likely explanation is that they were tied to the person's individual characteristics. So what I deduce from that is that people differ in the extent to which they view something as a social being. So this is the first link there. And then I think the next connection from there is a bit towards the uncanny valley, that they do see it as something social, and suddenly it makes them less comfortable because there was a negative effect there. To link that a bit to chapter 4, and specifically the part that you're referring to, it was more meant as a exclusion statement, or not exclusion, but like as to say it was not due to the robot looking too machine-like that people did not expect it to reciprocate. So that was more like the idea of the statement. We did not test whether a machine-like robot or a human-like robot would have provoked more expected reciprocity, but it was just to kind of exclude that explanation, to just say, okay, we already used quite a human-like robot, so it was not that it didn't look enough like a human, if you understand what I mean.
Yes, I do understand, but what puzzled me also a bit was this quite some theorizing on the anthropomorphism. Yeah, I'm completely lost in,
Yeah.
you know, the association, of course, of human traits. But there it seems that literature indicated and research indicated that it's really also linked to positive customer outcomes, and it also has been linked to human likeness of robots. So there I was a bit puzzled that it would not make a stronger connection there.
The starting point, to be honest, I started the project in 2019, so that's when the literature on service robots was still much less developed.
Yes.
And at this point, the starting point for this chapter was really this tension, like you mentioned. It wasn't really clear. There were some studies that suggested human likeness is positive, it leads more to social perceptions, and in that way to more positive outcomes. But there were, like, I would say, even more studies that looked more at the negative sides of the uncanny valley, for example, where they said the more you make it human-like, the more you unnerve people, and the more negative the service experience is going to be. And this was a bit the starting point where I put human likeness on the left side of the equation. For my part, I concluded that human likeness has a positive part, but I think it's just one small element to this bigger puzzle of many studies looking at many different contexts.
Yes, I think so too. Thank you.
Then we continue with Professor Paluch.
I assume I have to be very quick. So I want you to take the crystal ball and have a look at it. When you compare the Netherlands and Germany, I'm always very impressed that the Netherlands is so advanced with robots and service robots, and everything in Germany is lagging behind. Do you have an explanation for this, why there is such a big gap, and maybe you have also a solution to overcome that?
Dear highly esteemed opponent, thank you for your reflection on the development between Germany and the Netherlands. I can, of course, just speculate in that sense. I think it's, I mean, I'm German myself, right? I've been living here in the Netherlands for quite a couple of years. I think it might also have something to do with data privacy perceptions of people to like a large extent. I mean, in the Netherlands, when you go to the doc, I mean, Germany you also have that now, right? Like the digital, like I don't know, it's like the digital pass about all your sicknesses and everything. While in the Netherlands you already have that for like a long time, and people are, I think, more comfortable in the Netherlands with this data sharing than in Germany.
So now I must say, you may finish your sentence, but I think you did already. Okay, you can continue the discussion afterwards. Marc Becker, the time appointed for defending your thesis has passed. The degree committee will now withdraw to discuss the quality of your thesis and your defense. I request that you and your company await the results of our deliberations and our return in this room. Marc Becker, here. The degree committee here present has assessed the quality of your thesis and your defense. In view of its positive verdict and taking into account your previous qualifications, the degree committee has decided to grant you the degree of doctor. Professor Maar is authorized to confer upon you this academic distinction in accordance with Dutch university custom. I invite your supervisor to now take the floor.
Ready? Do you promise to work in accordance with the principles of scientific integrity at all times? To be careful and honest, transparent, independent, and responsible?
I promise.
By the authority vested in us by law and in conformity with the decision of the committee here present, I confer upon you, Marc Becker, cum laude, the degree of doctor and grant you all rights attached by custom and law. As evidence of this, I now present you with a degree certificate signed by the rector, the secretary and the other members of the committee, and affixed with the official seal of the university.
It's now time for the laudatio, and I leave it to the supervisors.
Dear Marc, dear Dr. Becker, it is done, and in what way? You received the official doctorate with a cum laude. That is something that is only granted to the top 5% and has only been granted twice over the last years to it SBE. And for you, it's just another milestone, added to the many milestones that you collected over the last years. Professionally, a lot of publications, but going to the US, growing family, rebuilding a house, and somewhere in between you finished your PhD very well. I'm truly amazed what you have accomplished, and on behalf of the entire supervisory team, Gabi, Emir, I can say we are truly, truly proud of what you have accomplished. And we used the time also to think back, where did it all start? It started actually on February 6, 2020, with an email at 20:57 that landed in my inbox and said, I'm a first-year research master student. I want to know something about services and asking for a short meeting. Polite, clear, motivated, Marc Becker. With my response back, 9 minutes later, it all began. In the first meeting, you made clear that you are a doer. Dominic, I want to work as a research assistant, but I do not want to do a PhD. Good start. You did a great thesis, which later turned into a publication. Then you came back to the office. Dominic, I could apply for a PhD position, but I don't want to stay in academia. Good. Nevertheless, you decided to give it a try. You got selected as a PhD candidate, and that was the start of a very successful endeavor, exploring new topics and having already 8 articles published with more to come. And I think the PhD did not change you. You actually made the PhD fitting with your topic and your Marc style. I was very confident about your skills and your fit with me as a supervisor, but still a PhD comes not only with thinking and doing, but also persistence. Would you be having the persistence to do so, getting through the hard times? There was a special moment in the very beginning when we started to talk about football. Because Marc revealed that he's a fan of Schalke 04, which is a club, and when he started to talk about that club, he became very emotional. It's for people who don't know it, it's a workers' club, which has a lot of ups and even more downs. There's a lot of drama, I thought if you're a fan of this club and still so emotional and positive about it, then you will also get over all the rejections that will come. You're a true team player, and then it was very nice that we expanded a supervisory team, first with Gabi and Emir, and later unofficially also with Dhruv. Gabi with all her sense for service robots, healthcare, her optimistic attitude. Emir with his judgment and decision-making perspective, and his humor. I enjoyed the supervisory team. You came always well prepared with your PowerPoint slides. Some made more sense, some less, but always good fun. The time in Boston was transformative, with Dhruv, who also sent his greetings and appreciation, and he mentioned your positive can-do attitude, and I couldn't agree more. Not possible doesn't exist for you. You always think first, and then you come up with a solution. And with all the happiness that we want to also share also from Dhruv, but also we are very happy to see you as a proud daddy. Let me summarize you as the Marc way. And I put that in 4 letters, like your name. The first one is MCR. You showed such, an amazing team, that you're such an amazing team player, bringing that forward, working with all of, with Kars, Roman, Alexandru, Gabi, Marc, Chelsea, and many others. You gave so much life, literally, to animated, Temi. You worked for the team, you worked with the team, and always together. I think you're the team player. The second one is AI. Generative AI, and more recently agentic AI, came also in a perfect fit. You were always willing to share your knowledge on AI, getting into it in SBE with a Spark, in our marketing and supply chain management department, and that is, you are really true generative AI wizard. Brings me to 3, respectful. You're extremely respectful also, and that makes it really nice to work with you. If I send you sometimes a message, a text, a slide, and then I get one back that sounds like, I adapted the slides slightly, Dominic. I hope it's fine with you. Which means it's totally changed now. And the last one is chats. I really, really appreciate and love the chats with you. And sometimes they can, if we have a bit of time, they can go very off track and you bring in thoughts that I have never thought before. Always fun and always enriching. So to close for me, I really want to explicitly thank, the family, your friends, co-authors, colleagues, the supervisory team, but especially also Lily and Joyce, for making this happen, because you need to deal with all this. I just need to finish it, the night hours. So behind every PhD, there's a very strong, strong team of the entire family. And I'm really excited maybe once you explain to Lily what a PhD actually is. I'm looking forward to that story. You are committed, not only researcher, but committed partner and a very proud father. So it's a true pleasure to work with you, an honor. Congratulations again for this outstanding performance. And it's not the end, it's the start of more to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I will hand over now to Gabi for continuing the day show.
Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you so much, Dominic. And before I start, I first want to give you this big cum laude hug, Marc. Very well deserved. Dr. Becker. Also on my behalf, congratulations. And in our deliberation, we said, well, Marc was so composed. He was at points even close to being an AI or robot, so in depth with his answers. That was meant as a compliment. And today you walked into this room with your typical calm face, steady voice, and that familiar, I've got this energy. And I think this is funny because if we look at the last few years, like Dominic also referred to, your PhD was anything but calm. And as Dominic said, when we think of your PhD, we don't picture one single project. Only half of the work is in this book. All the other half is somewhere floating, published in different journals, under review. And I think you have been running 2 tracks at once. One track, research, robots, AI, theory, data, writing, revising, and repeat. But the other track, life, big, beautiful, slightly chaotic. Your wedding, 1.5 years abroad with Joyce, buying a house, renovating it completely, and then, if that wasn't enough, starting a family. And many PhD candidates treat a PhD as a full-time demanding job. But see, it's not, because you treated it as one item on a very ambitious life checklist. And my honest, genuine, deep respect for that. And we've first met, I don't recall the date and the email, Dominic, in Lisa's research master course, right after my sabbatical. And not long after that, we worked together on our first paper for the Service Business Journal. And I think in the beginning, your and mine collaboration still had to find its rhythm. And I still remember those meetings when you booked a tutorial room with an agenda, very seriously, and there Emir's humor came in, because as your daily supervisor, I think you did an amazing job in translating between Marc, the young go-getter, and yeah, I called it the philosophical feedback from Dominic and myself. Probably that's not completely doing justice, but somehow how we need a bit of translation. And what I recall from those days is that your hot chocolate habit from the vending machine. And I still believe that makes Marc a bit of a rare species, right? Your research started with robot emotions, and I think that honestly suited you, because your own emotions, to me at least, being very high and very low, you were this very, very impressively stable guy, at least from the outside. I'm not sure how Joyce experienced that, but at least for us as a supervisory team, that was Marc. Even when life threw you a roller coaster, you kept showing up hands-on, pragmatic, curious, and generous, as Dominic already elaborated on. Had the teamwork also in MCR, open days, always willing to jump in, and often using your programming skills to help others thrive and flourish. And then Boston happened. You and Joyce left for 1.5 years, and Dominic and I even got to visit you there. I still recall the rain and umbrella. I typically go to places where the sun is shining, but you were the sunshine there. And I have to say, you have a talent for suspense. Because until then, you had not introduced your supervisor team, or me at least, to Joyce, or Joyce to us. Much like how this morning, I only received your PhD booklet, your printed thesis. Consistency is also a virtue, Marc. Sorry. But back in the Netherlands, you moved from Boston to Born. An excellent choice, obviously. And started renovating your house in a way that made it temporarily unrecognizable. And during my walks, I met parents, in-laws, but still not Joyce. And then finally, only at Marc Steins's defense, we met, and it felt completely natural, as if you had, and you obviously did have, always been part of the story. And what I especially enjoy is that the story did not end with your dissertation. It simply shifted to a new chapter. In the final stage of your PhD, you became an assistant professor at Spark, helping integrate AI into the curriculum. And that also helped you to answer our colleagues' Beaux-Arts question. And right now, Marc, we are building something together that feels very Marc. Workshops that bring AI out of the abstract and into real students' life, at the hotel management school, at first-year medical students, always with that strong bridge from theory to practice. And what I appreciate most about that is our shared rhythm. Applied, pragmatic, no unnecessary drama, and somehow still fun. And that's not easy with those workshops, but yet here we are. And now with adorable little Lily in your lives, it's even clearer what this PhD really represents. It's not just knowledge, but a way of building things carefully, patiently, and with purpose. And that's also what you're doing now at Spark, helping integrate AI, and in this way that fits you best, applied, pragmatic, and always constructive. Marc, you earned this cum laude. And that was not on my text because we were also taken by surprise. So thank you also for all members here for granting that. But you did not do it alone. Dominic already mentioned it, but I think this part doesn't hurt to mention it again. Congratulations, Dr. Becker. And congratulations to Joyce. You have been Marc's partner in crime in all these chapters. To Lily, your adorable daughter. But also congratulations to the stolze Eltern and to Joyce's parents as well. Today belongs to all of you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Dear Dr. Becker, also on behalf of Maastricht University and the School of Business and Economics, I congratulate you with the degree that you have acquired. Before we close the session, I would like to give the floor to Professor van Doren to congratulate you.
Thank you.
Hi, Marc, congratulations.
Thank you.
You really did a great job. I'm very sorry that Code Rood prevents you from being there, but you did a great job today, and I love your thesis. Hope to be in touch soon.
Thank you so much. I hope so too.
Okay, and herewith we close the session. For now, we have a photo moment here in front of the screen. Professor van Doren is on the screen. And thereafter, you're asked to go to the proeverij. That's where we have Marc has the reception. Okay, and herewith I close the session.